Hi guys, this is Andrew with rockclass101.com, and in this week's ukulele lesson, Steven's going to be teaching you how to play Carol of the Bells. So this is one of my favorite Christmas tunes. I think it just has such a cool sound to it, and I've got to give big props to Steven for writing an awesome sounding arrangement. Now the first thing about this tune, as you can hear, this is a low G arrangement, so make sure you grab the low G ukulele for this. Now, as I got a chance to play through the arrangement, I do have to say that it is perfect for those of you who are transitioning from the beginner to the intermediate level. Now, if you're curious on how I define the beginner, intermediate, and advanced player, click this link to find out. But there's a couple things about this arrangement that make it easy to play, and there's some stuff that makes it a little bit hard to play. So for example, one of the things that makes it easier to play is that first theme, it starts out with what we call double stops. Double stop is a fancy terminology that literally just means you're playing two notes at once. So you can see and hear right there in the beginning, you're plucking two notes for that first hit, and that's it. And as you probably guessed, it's a lot easier to play two notes than it is to play a full-blown chord. A chord is defined as three or more notes put together at the same time. So it starts off pretty simple, but then it gets a little bit harder. If you think about this tune, you think about how it develops. The next big theme in this song goes da 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 da, right? It starts out really high and then it moves downward. And that same movement is reflected in this arrangement. So you're introducing chord work. Oops, if I play right. So you're introducing chord work into there, but you're also adding that movement that's heard in the composition itself. So it's going to be challenging a little bit in that regard because it breaks you away from playing only in the beginning of the neck. So with that said, let's talk a little bit about this lesson. So in this video, you guys are going to be learning the entire arrangement. But if you want to get the tabs to print off and follow along with, you can do so by clicking this link right here or going to the site rockclass101.com and doing a search for Carol of the Bells. Now also on that page will be the interactive on-screen tab viewer. So this is a really cool feature where you can hit play, you can watch the tab scroll across in real time, you can highlight bars to loop sections, slow it down to any speed you wish. Just a great asset in learning this song that much easier. All right guys, so I'm going to go ahead and hand it off to Steven to teach you how to play this, and then I'll see you at the end of the video.
What's up guys? In this video we're going to learn one of my absolute favourite Christmas tunes of all time, Carol of the Bells. It's just such a cool tune, it's so Christmassy, but it just sounds so amazing as well. You know, it's so good, I could literally listen to this piece any time of year, you know, not just at Christmas, I could listen to this in the summer, and I'm not ashamed to say that. I mean, I'm a little bit ashamed to say that, but even so, it is what it is. You know, it's a great tune, I love it. So, in terms of this arrangement, I've based it loosely on the John Williams arrangement from the movie Home Alone. There's been so many recordings of this tune over the years, but for me personally, I think that's probably the most iconic. Just such a cool arrangement. So although it's quite a short piece, we have split this into 5 sections. We've got an intro, we've got 3 themes, and we've got an outro. So we'll look at each section in turn, and we'll break each one down one bar at a time, and we'll look at the best fingerings to use, and just share any sort of tips and tricks along the way that'll make this nice and easy for you to learn. In terms of technique, it's fairly straightforward. In terms of the right hand, we're just going to be using kind of standard finger picking techniques for this one. So we're going to be using thumb on the bass string, index on the C, middle on the E, and the ring finger on the A string, so pretty standard there. In terms of the left hand, it's not too bad either. We do go up and down the neck a little bit. There are some sections that are a bit higher up, but it's mostly open, mostly in first position. There's no bar chords or anything like that. And it's fairly straightforward from that point of view. There are a lot of hammer-ons in this piece, like loads of hammer-ons actually, there's quite a lot of those, so maybe just make sure you're comfortable with those before getting stuck in. But if you're ready to go and you're geared up for this, then get your Christmas jumper on, grab yourself one of these things, let's get into it. So this piece is in 3/4 time, so we've got 3 beats to the bar, or 3/4 notes to the bar, so we're counting 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And in terms of the rhythm, it's pretty simple. We probably don't even need to think about the rhythm with this piece. I'm sure we can all play it by ear because it's so well known. But I think whenever we're approaching a new piece of music, it's always good practice just to think about the rhythm, think about it musically so we know what we're doing rhythmically. And this piece has a really repetitive rhythmic theme pretty much all the way through. For most of the measures that we're going to play through this piece, the rhythm that we're going to play is 1, 2 and 3. 1, 2 and 3, and you can almost hear the melody behind that when you even say those numbers, 1, 2 and 3, 1, 2 and 3, 1, 2 and 3. So we're just playing that pretty much all the way through. It does deviate slightly from that in some places, but only in a couple of places, and there's not much of a difference to that rhythm. So pretty straightforward rhythmically. In terms of the melody, that's pretty repetitive as well. For most of the piece, we're just playing this. Just that sequence there with this kind of descending bass line running behind it. So it's just really cool, just a really cool piece. It just sounds so good when it's played all together. So we'll have a look at the intro first. This just makes up the first 4 bars of the piece, and we're mostly just doing, we're doing just single pick notes all the way through the intro. The first 2 bars are the same, they just repeat, and then the second 2 bars are repeats of each other as well. So the first bar, if we look at it, we're going to be on the A string and we're going to be up at the 10th fret, and we're just going to pick that on beat 1. And for this bar we are playing our 1, 2 and 3 rhythm. For all 4 bars in this intro we're doing that repetitive rhythmic theme 1, 2 and 3 all the way through this section. So beat 1 is that A string at the 10th fret. Now you could play that with the 3rd finger like I'm doing there. You could play it with the 2nd finger. It doesn't really matter for this little bit. Whatever you think is more comfortable for you as you sort of put this bar together, just choose the fingering that suits you best. I'm going to go with the 3rd finger here, but you choose whatever works best for you. So beat 1 was that note there, but just pick that with our ring finger. Then we're going to go to the fret behind, to the 9th fret. So just take the next finger down and just put it on behind. Take that other finger off, and then on beat 2 we'll just pick that note there, the 9th fret, with the same finger, the ring finger there. But then on the and after beat 2 we're going to hammer back up to that 10th fret where we started. So the next finger up that we originally played it with, we'll just hammer it back on to where it was, and then on the beat 3 we're then going to play the E string, but we're going to play a harmonic at the 12th fret. So we'll play that with a little finger. If you are doing the same finger as me, if you're playing it with the 2nd finger and the 1st finger, maybe use the 3rd finger. Again, whatever's comfortable. It doesn't really matter at this stage what fingering you use, okay? But whatever finger it is that's going to play this harmonic, the technique for this, if you're not familiar with harmonics, is that we want to just place the pad of this finger just gently touching the string at the 12th fret. And we want to be directly over the fret wire. On this 12th fret here. Normally when we would play a note, if we were playing the 12th fret as a normal note, we'd use the tip of the finger and we'd be putting it just behind the fret wire just to get a nice clean note. If it's on the fret wire, it's kind of going to sound dull. But when we play a harmonic, we want to be directly over that fret wire, and we want to use the pad of the finger and just rest it on the string, just gently touch it directly over the 12th, pick it, and then straight after you've picked it, just let that finger off, take it away quite quickly, not too soon, otherwise you don't get the harmonic, you just get a big horrible E string being played, which I've done many times. So just hold it on gently and then take it off to let that harmonic ring out. Okay, gently touching, pick and release directly over that 12th fret wire. Okay, so bar 1, if we look at it again, we started on our 10th fret, down to the 9th, hammer back up, and then 12th fret harmonic. 1, 2 and 3. Okay, so let's try that together, just the first bar there, just those first few notes. So on my count, starting at the 10th fret, on my count, 1, 2, 3. Okay, good. So bar 2, we just repeat that, we play that again. And that's the first 2 bars done. We're then going to play that same thing again for bars 3 and 4, but we're going to play it an octave lower. So what we want to do now, we want to let that 12th fret harmonic ring but then we want to move down to the C string at the 7th fret and hold that probably just with the same fingers we were using for the first 2 bars. I'm going to go with the 3rd finger there at the 7th fret, but you could use the 2nd finger as before, whatever's more comfortable for you. Okay, so bar 3 on beat 1, we're playing that C string at the 7th fret. We use the index finger for that. But when we play that, we want to try and keep that 12th fret harmonic from the end of the previous bar just ringing out over this first note here. So what we've had is, okay, so just letting that harmonic ring. Now, because we have to move position down to the 7th fret, we do have to kind of release the pressure off the neck. What I find when I do this is that the neck of the ukulele has a tendency just to sort of drop as you're moving your hand down. Because we're changing position, it can drop. It's easy then to catch that E string as it's ringing and mute it, which we want to try and avoid. So one tip here that is quite useful, I can't do it with this because I haven't had the I suppose the confidence yet to drill a hole into my canalea ukulele, but I haven't got a strap button on the bottom of here. But if you have got a strap button and you've got a strap set up all sorted, then it probably is worth having your strap worn for this, because it'll just keep the head up. It means that you can change position with the hands without fear of that head just dropping, because your strap will keep it in place. So if you have got a strap, I would definitely recommend wearing it for playing this piece. Okay, so on that beat bar 3, we've played our 7th fret. On beat 1, we're playing the same rhythmic theme, 1, 2 and 3, the same kind of idea, just the same as bars 1 and 2, but an octave lower. So after beat 1, on that 7th fret, on beat 2, we're going to drop to the 6th fret, pick that, then the and after beat 2, hammer back up to the 7th, and then on beat 3, just playing that E string open to ring out for the rest of that bar. And again, we'll leave this on the 7th fret on the C string. We'll just leave that on, let that ring whilst we're playing the open E. Let it all ring over each other, gives it kind of more of a kind of, you know, choir sound when it's all kind of ringing and harmonic together there. Okay, so bar 3, we just play that again for bar 4. So let's have a go at playing bar 3 there. We'll play it together. So on the C string at the 7th fret to start with, on my count, nice and slow, 1, 2, 3. Okay, simple as that. So when we try and put it all together now, we'll play those first 4 bars all back to back. So starting at the 10th fret, we'll play that sequence twice. Then we'll move down to the C string at the 7th fret and play that sequence twice. Okay, so on my count, nice and slow from the very beginning, 1, 2, 3. So on to the B section, theme 1, and we've got exactly the same rhythmic theme going all the way through this entire section. So we're playing 1, 2 and 3, 1, 2 and 3 all the way through, and we have exactly the same melody all the way through as well. Okay, it's exactly the same as what we played at the end of the intro, except we're playing it in a different position, but it's the same notes. Okay, but the section where it's different is we have this descending bass line now that comes in and just descends its way down through these bars. So it's the same melody, but we start getting this bass line going. It's just really cool sounding. So in terms of the first beat of this first bar, so bar 5 is our first bar of this section, and what we want to do, we're holding the E minor shape, but we're not holding the full E minor because the A string doesn't even come into this section at all. We don't play the A string once in this section. So we'll just ignore that finger and we'll just play what's left of the E minor chord. So our second finger is on the E string at the 2nd fret and our third finger is on the C string at the 4th fret. And it is important that we do use those 2 fingers and not these 2, because we need to have a spare finger here ready to do some hammering on in this bar. So our very first note of bar 1, we've got this double stop, bar 5, we've got this double stop here. We're going to play that with the index in the middle, 2nd and 3rd string, being fretted there, making that E minor shape. So that's beat 1. Then on beat 2, we want to drop this down to the 2nd fret on the E string. So we'll take this finger off, we'll put the first finger on behind, but we'll keep this ready because this is going to hammer straight back onto that fret it's just left shortly after. So beat 2, we pick that note, then the and after beat 2, we just hammer back on there, and then we're going to play the E string open. So both of these two fingers, we'll just take those both off, leave the third finger on the C string at the fourth, because we want to let that just ring out over this entire bar as we play the E string on that beat 3. So what we'd have there for that bar, 1, 2 and 3. Okay, so our first beat, we're just playing our first melody note, but we're also playing this bass note at the same time, letting the bass note ring while we complete that little melody section there. Okay, and then on to the next bar, bar 6. Again, the melody, the rhythm, exactly the same, but all we're doing is we're changing the bass note down a couple of frets to the C string at the 2nd fret. So the shape we're going to hold is this E minor 7, which is essentially like holding a G chord really, but without this finger on here. So we're holding the C string at the 2nd fret with the first finger, the E string at the 3rd fret with the 3rd finger. And again, we'll play that double stop for beat 1. So we've got our first melody note, we've got our new bass note, but then we want to complete that same melody cycle again. So we'll use this finger to hold the E string at the 2nd fret, take the 3rd finger off, play that note on beat 2, and then put the 3rd finger back on for the and after beat 2, hammer that back on, good strong hammer to get that sound coming out nice. That's on the and then on beat 3, we're just going to take both those fingers off again, leaving our bass note finger on and playing that open E string. That's on beat 3. 1, 2 and 3. Okay, so those 2 bars together, our first 2 bass notes in this descending sequence, we would have. Okay, and you can hear the importance there of having that bass note ring all the way through. We don't want that bass note cut off, because it just doesn't sound as good, doesn't sound the same. We want that ringing all the way through. So in terms of your chord change from the E minor shape to the E minor 7, we want to practice doing that quite quickly, having that change quite rapid so that we can leave this shape on as long as possible through bar 5 and only switch to this shape just before we're going to play it on the first beat of bar 6. So you see that note, that change there. Hold it, hold it, hold it, just before playing it. Switch it round to that shape. So it might be worth practicing just even that. Don't even worry about playing for now. If that change is a bit slow and you haven't got it, just stop at this point. You know, do some finger push-ups, hold that there, and just practice that change. So you've got that nice and quick, okay? And try and do quite kind of efficient finger movements. We haven't got to kind of take everything off and then start again to build this one up. Think about where the fingers are going. Visualize this one replacing that one. This one's just going to go where this one was, so that just moves like that. So a little short movement, just hop it across, and as you move it, twist the wrist kind of round a little bit like that, because that'll bring the first finger into position, ready to drop onto the C string. So from there, probably think about this finger, lead with that one to get it where it wants to go, and then it'll be easy then just to drop the first finger on. It kind of happens automatically in a way that there. Nice short movements, nice and quick. So you can practice that, so we've got that change nice and quick. Okay, so let's try those 2 bars together, bars 5 and 6. So on my count, nice and slow. 1, 2, 3. Okay, perfect. So then on to the next bar, we're looking at bar 7. Again, we've got exactly the same rhythm, exactly the same melody, but now we're going to drop the bass note down another 2 frets to the open C string. So we'll go with the 2nd finger here. You could use the 3rd. This bit doesn't really matter, but we'll go with the 2nd, and we'll play that 2nd string, the E string at the 3rd fret, and we'll play that with the open C string. There's our new bass note. Same rhythm, same melody. The hammer from the 2nd to the 3rd, then the 3rd, then the 2nd open. Okay. Simple as that. So 1, 2 and 3. Okay, then on to the next bar. We're going to keep that bass line going down again. So what we're going to do now is we're going to use the second finger, as we've just done, back onto that E string at the 3rd fret. But now we want to loop the 3rd finger over the top. We want to be careful here not to catch that C string, because that's still ringing out from the previous bar. We don't want to cut that off with the pad of this finger as we put it onto this G string at the 4th fret. We want to let that C string just carry on ringing, because it'll just keep this kind of sustaining kind of choir sound going all the way through this. So try and loop it over so we keep that ringing, and then we play on beat 1 our E string at the 3rd fret and our G string at the 4th fret, played with our 3rd finger. Play those 2 notes together for beat 1 there of that bar 8. And then again after that, exactly the same as before, E string 2nd to 3rd with a hammer on, 2 and 3, and then beat 3, 3rd open. 1, 2 and 3. Okay, so those 2 bars from the open C string in the bass, we had. Okay, good. Now, when we get to the next bar, we are going to kind of carry on this descending bass line, but we come back up a note first before descending back down. So we go back up to the open C as our bass note. So this is going to be bar number 9, this A minor 7 shape where we just had it before. So basically this bar is the same as bar 7. So with the open C string in the bass, and then bar 10, we just repeat that again, back to this bass note. Okay, so bars 9 and 10 just repeats as bar 7 and 8. But then when we get to bar 11, we're just going to carry this bass line, descending even further, now down to the 2nd fret on the G string. So we'll hold that with the 1st finger, and we'll go back to this E string at the 3rd fret with our 3rd finger. We'll play those 2 notes, and then we'll do our same rhythm, our same melody sequence. So hammer on from the 2nd fret to the 3rd, then the E string open. Okay, and then for the final bar here, bar 12 of this section, we just want to play the open G string in the bass now to complete that sequence. But again, E string, exactly the same as before, back to the 3rd fret, play it with the open G, do the same little sequence to finish off that bar. Okay, so the entire section there, all the way through, starting from bar 5 down to the end of bar 12. I'll play it quite slowly. This is how it would sound. So let's have a go at that together. There's quite a few bars there to try all together, but it does sound quite nice to get that bass note sort of descending sequence going. So I'll have a go super slow and try and play what I've just played there, but just a little bit slower. Okay, so from bar 5, from that E minor shape, we'll start with that double stop there, 2nd and 3rd strings on my count. 1, 2, 3. Onto the C section now. The first 4 bars of this section are a lot different to what we've been playing already. The melody is the same. We're still playing that sequence, and our rhythm's the same. We're still playing our 1, 2 and 3. And we're still doing the bass notes, but we're just doing a different sequence of bass notes now. So if we think about the first 4 bars of this C section, the bass notes we're going to be hearing are... Okay, so just those 4 bass notes for the first 4 bars, but with our standard melody just in the background there. So these bars, we've played them all before, we're just playing them in a different sequence now. So we're going to start on this bar 13, the first one of this C section, with our 2nd finger on the E string at the 3rd fret. I'm going to play that with the open C in the bass, so this double stop here, 2 middle strings. We'll just pick those together. And then we complete that bar with our standard sequence. Okay, a little melody flurry there where we hammer on from 2nd to 3rd and then pick the E string open. So that bar there would be... Okay, and then onto the next bar. Again, we've played this one before, so we're going to put our second finger back on where it was, and the third finger over onto the G string at the 4th fret, pick those together, then do our little hammer on, E string open, and then we go back to that C, so we just repeat bar 13, go back to the open C in the bass. Okay, and then the next bar would have the open G in the bass, so exactly the same, but the open G string in the bass instead. Okay, so that little sequence all together of 4 bars, we've gone through that quite quickly, but we've played this all before, so it should be quite familiar. So what we're after is... Okay, so we'll maybe play those 4 bars together. As I say, we've seen them before, so we should be able to cope with this one if we go nice and slow. So from bar 13, we'll play those 4 bars together on my count. 1, 2, 3. Okay, good. So then on to the next bar, bar 17. This is where we got our first change in the melody. We're still playing the same rhythm for these next bars. We're still playing our 1, 2, and 3, but we're going to change the melody up a little bit higher onto the A string now. So for bar 17, we're going to start on beat 1 with this alternative version of the E minor chord, kind of a full version of the E minor. So we've got our first finger on the A string at the second finger on the E string at the third, and then these 2 fingers, your 3rd and 4th fingers, will take the bottom 2 strings at the 4th fret. And that's our full E minor chord. And on beat 1 for bar 17, we want to play that whole chord, and you could pick it with all 4 fingers, but I like to do a strum there because I think it just makes it a bit more dramatic when we're changing up to that new section. Just adds a bit of drama there to give it a good strum. So on beat 1, we'll play our strum, and then same rhythm like I say, so 2 and 3, we're going to play on beat 2, the open A string. So we'll keep everything else on, keep the chord held, but we'll just take that index finger off to play that open A string on beat 2, and then the and after beat 2, hammer it back onto where it was at the 2nd fret there, and then play the E string at the 3rd fret, which is just being held already by our E minor chord. So we just pick the 2nd string, the E string, on beat 3. So we'd have 1, 2, and 3. And that's bar 17. So we'll try that one together because it's a new kind of sequence there. So we'll play the E minor chord nice and slow on my count. 1, 2, 3. Okay, good. Now on to bar 18, we've got a little bit of a cheeky change going on. We need to switch to this E minor 6 chord, which looks like this. Pretty simple chord to play, but changing from this shape here is a bit of a change to get that nice and quick and nice and clean, because we do want to be changing this quite quickly. As with all the other bars we've been playing, we want to let everything ring and sustain for as long as we can, and only really change our fingering on the left hand when we absolutely need to, just before we're going to play it. So on this bar, before on bar 17, we're holding this shape, and then we want to quickly on bar 18 change to this shape. And again, like we've done previously, that might be a point where you just stop and have a bit of a go at that. Just keep practicing that chord change until you can get that nice and quick. And again, you know, efficient movements, don't take the fingers all off and then start up again. Just think about where they're going to go from this position here. You know, think about this 3rd finger and how that's going to replace this 1st finger here. So this finger is going to go down onto the A string at the 2nd fret, and you know, visualize it doing that, move it across, and at the same time visualize this finger just coming up to the C string at the 1st fret. Again, a little twist of the wrist might help there, just to kind of bring the hand round and get that 1st finger into position. Because if we look at when we're playing the E minor, the wrist is kind of in this kind of, well, straight position here, but when we hold this shape, it's kind of up round to the side a little bit. So you can even think about that as you're thinking about where the fingers are going to go. Fingers are going to shift, wrist is going to change. Obviously the other 2 fingers are just going to come off, we don't want them. And just practice that change, visualize where the fingers are going, and just keep practicing it until that's nice and quick and nice and smooth. Okay, and then once it is, we go on to bar 18. So we start on beat 1 of bar 18 with that E minor 6 chord, and we're just playing the A, E, and C strings together. So we'll play those with our fingers, 3 fingers together. And and play those there on beat 1. And then the rest of the little melody section here in this bar is the same as the previous one. So we go onto the open A string. So take that finger off to open up the A string, pick it on beat 2, hammer it back on to the 2nd fret for the and after beat 2, and then play the E string at the 3rd fret, which we'll have to put our pinky on there to play that note. Okay, so the E minor 6 chord, open A, hammer back on, pinky on there to play the E string at the 3rd. Okay, and then when we go into bar 19, we're pretty similar to what we've just done. All we need to do is move this finger up 1 fret. We could use the 2nd finger there. That's probably more correct to do it that way, but when I'm playing this, I tend to just move that 1st finger up and back down. Okay, it doesn't really matter how you do it there, whatever's more comfortable for you, it works either way. So bar 19 was that new shape there, so this E minor 7 chord, and then hammer on, back onto the 2nd fret, sorry, and then the E string at the 3rd, just like before. Okay, so it's kind of the same as the previous bar, we've just moved the bass note up 1 fret. So bar 18 was, and then bar 19, we just move it up 1, and then for bar 20, we just move that bass note back down to the C string at the 1st fret and play that again. So bar 20 there is just the same as bar 18. So this whole section here, these 4 bars that end this C section, this new melody sequence that we've got, would sound like this. Okay, so let's have a go at those 4 bars together. We'll just try playing them nice and slow. So from this E minor shape that we're holding here, so get that ready to go, and then full strum of that on beat 1, and we'll play these 4 bars to the end of bar 20. So on my count, nice and slow, 1, 2, 3. So onto the D section now. Just to warn you, this section is probably the hardest bit of the whole piece. All the stuff that's difficult about this piece are all in this section. They're all thrown in here just to keep it all in one place. It's probably a good thing, isn't it? We'll get it all done in this section. So it is a bit scary, but please don't run away. Stick with it. We'll be all right. We'll go slow. We'll take it one step at a time, and we'll be okay with this section. So the reason it's tricky is because we're up and down the neck a little bit. We're up to the 7th fret and back down again. We've got some tricky little kind of picking patterns that we need to do, and some pretty crazy hammer-ons as well. So it's all kind of thrown in here. It's all in the mix, all making this a bit of a scary section. But once we've done this section, the outro bit is all familiar. We've been there before. So once we get through this section, we're pretty much there. So if we look at bar 21, the first bar in this section, in this D section, we're still working on an E minor chord, but we're playing it up the neck at the 7th fret rather than in first position down here where we were playing it earlier. So our first beat of bar 21 is going to be this E minor chord. Okay, and the rhythm we're playing here is very similar to what we've been doing all the way through so far, except we're adding an extra 8th note at the end of this bar. So instead of 1, 2 and 3, we're now playing 1, 2 and 3 and. That little and at the end has to be 3, we're adding in there as well. So we're playing this on beat 1, our E minor chord. But if we think about where we've come from, because obviously when we play this all together, we're going to be moving up from the previous bar. And this is where we were on the previous bar, on bar 20. So from here, we want to be sliding up to the 7th fret. What I would do from this point here, keep this finger on and just slide it up to the 7th fret. But as you slide this finger up to the 7th, just add this finger on to the C string. Just as you're moving this up, just add this on and actually make pressure, put it onto the frets and then slide both fingers up so they both slide into position at the 7th there, ready to go. So from here, we're sliding up the 3rd finger, taking the first one off, adding the 2nd one on at some point as we're sliding up, put the pressure on, and then there we are. And that slide sound is okay, we quite like that actually. It sounds quite good when you play this all together as one piece, that little slide sound. up there to the 7th, it does sound quite good. So don't be worried about having that in there, that slide sound. So that's something you could practice even just sort of before moving on. You could just stop with this little bit. And just practice that change up to the 7th so that you're ready to go on this bar. So bar 21, there we go, beat 1, that's what we're playing. And then on beat 2 and 3 and, so we're playing 4 little 8th notes now for the rest of this bar. What we're going to do is we're going to play the A string at the 7th, again, already being held. So that's on beat 2, then the and after beat 2, we play it again. Then on beat 3, we're going to drop this A string down to the 5th fret. So we'll put the first finger on the 5th fret behind there, take this 3rd finger off, then we play that on beat 3, and then the and after beat 3, we're going to play the E string at the 8th, which we'll hold with our pinky, and play that on the and after beat 3. 1, 2, and 3, and. Okay. Now in terms of playing this at speed, when we get to the kind of speed we want to be playing this at, that little picking sequence there is a bit tricky actually. It's hard to play it all with kind of one finger because it comes in quite quick. So what we could do here for this bar, and the next one as well, is a little right hand technique called tremolo picking. So we could employ a little bit of tremolo picking with our right hand here just to help speed up those picks a little bit and get that kind of picked sequence sound a little bit smoother and a little bit cleaner. So how that would look is on beat 1 we've played our 3 notes there, A, E and C string on this E minor chord. So played that on beat 1, and then on beat 2 for these 4 8th notes, if we play the A string there with the 2nd finger first, then play it again with the 1st finger. Then when we drop down to the 5th fret, go back to the 2nd finger, and then back to the 1st finger to play the E string at the 8th fret. Okay, so if I show you that a bit more clearly from this angle here, you've watched my fingers here and what they're doing. Okay, so just alternating those fingers, picking those strings. That's just called tremolo picking, and it's something you can use just to speed up your picking a little bit. I mean, it's a whole technique in itself that can be used for kind of more classical sounding stuff, but it works here quite well just to help the smoothness of this picked sequence. Okay, so that's bar 21. When we go on to bar 22, we're playing the same rhythm, so we're playing 1, 2, and 3, and again. So it sounds very similar to that bar we've just played. We're just moving the notes sort of down the sequence a little bit. So then we're going to keep this finger on. So at the start of bar 22, we're going to keep this finger on the C string at the 7th, but we're going to put the 3rd finger on to the E string at the 7th and play those 2 strings with the open G in the bass. So beat 1 of bar 22 is those 3 strings. And then we're going to do another sort of pair of 8th notes, 4 little notes in quite quick succession here. So we'll use our tremolo picking again. So we'll play the E string at the 7th there with the 2nd finger. Play it again with the 1st finger. Then drop down to the 5th fret on the E string. Play that again with the 2nd finger. And then the final note is this C string at the 7th fret, which we've been holding all the way through these 2 bars. That doesn't come off at all. And we just play that with the 1st finger. Okay, it just speeds up that picking a little bit, gets it nice and clean. So the 2 bars together would sound like this. Picking there a bit more clearly as well. Okay, good. So let's have a go at those 2 bars together, super slow on my count. We'll play them both bars together, 21 and 22. 1, 2, 3. Okay, brill. So then on to bar 23, we're going to slide all this back down to the beginning of the fretboard, to the 1st position there, and just play a simple A minor chord an open A minor chord, but using our first finger here to hold the G string at the second. It's quite important that we use the first finger there. And again, we just can play all those strings together. You can strum that down or just use the fingers to pick that. Doesn't really matter how you do it, whatever you think sounds best. And then we're playing the same rhythm again, so 1, 2, and 3 and. So we'll do our same kind of picking pattern here. So we play that on beat 1, then on beat 2, open A string with the second finger, open A string again, but with the first finger this time, and then put the second finger or third finger, whatever's more comfortable for you, onto the A string at the second fret, pick that with the second finger, just that string on its own, and then pull that off to sound out that last note there. So we're not going to pick that last note, we're just going to play that with the pull off. So we'd have 1, 2, and 3, and. Okay, so using that tremolo pick in there as well on that bar. 1, 2, and 3, and. Okay, so all 3 bars there together would sound like this. So onto the next bar, just to complete this little sequence, we're then going to put on most of the E minor chord that we had before. So we're going to take these fingers and just drop them on to where they would go. So the E string at the 3rd fret, and then these two onto the C and G at the 4th fret. Obviously that first finger then can come off, and we're just going to play those bottom 3 strings, the E, the C, and the G, being held by that shape there. Okay, so that's beat 1 of bar 24. And for this bar, we're going back to our original rhythm that we've played through most of this piece. It's 1, 2, and 3. We don't need the extra 8th note at the end now. In this one, we're just playing 1, 2, and 3. So 1, back down to the 2nd fret on the E string with the first finger, pick that, hammer back up to the 3rd with the 2nd finger, then take that finger off and play the open E. But like we've done before, we'll leave these fingers on through that bar just so that rings out nicely and sustains over what we're playing there. So that whole little sequence there, those 4 bars together, would sound like this. Okay, so that's quite a tricky little section. Just stick with that for a while and practice that one because it is quite tough. And to get that speed of picking and smooth sound with your picking as well. Okay, so once you're happy with that, we'll move on and have a look at bar 25, and this is where we now have this really crazy sequence of hammer-ons. Again, this bit is quite tricky, but when you've got this and when it clicks, when you can play it, it's so fun to play. It's super fun. It sounds really cool as well, this little sequence of hammer-ons. So the best way to practice this and the best way to play it, and be strict with this, because if you can learn to play it this way using this finger in, it just flows really, really, really well. It sounds good and it feels good as well. It just feels enjoyable when you get the right fingers doing the hammer-ons here, keeping the hand in position. So the first hammer-on is quite tricky, because it's probably fingers that we wouldn't normally use for hammering on, and we've got to stretch quite a bit as well to be on the G string here. So what we're going to do, obviously we've been holding that shape there on bar 24. We're then going to pick with the thumb this G string, which is being held there at the 4th fret already. We'll take the pinky off because we're going to use that for the hammer-on shortly, and then beat 1 of bar 25, and we're playing all 8th notes in this bar, 1 and 2 and 3 and, so all 8th notes, and we're going to pick the first one with the thumb, then on the and after beat 1 we're going to hammer up to the 6th fret, and that's quite hard. It's a bit of a stretch, and the pinky probably isn't traditionally used for that kind of hammer on. It can feel a bit strange to get that, well, it just feels a bit strange, full stop. There you go, feels weird. Okay, we'll keep practicing that and get that nice sort of sound, hammer it on onto that 6th fret. Okay, so that's 1 and. And then for 2 and, we're going to do another little hammer on, but we're going to move to the C string this time. So once you've played that, take that off, and then put the second finger onto the C string at the 3rd fret. I'm going to pick that with the index finger on the right hand, and then take this finger off as you play the C string, because that one that was just taken off is then going to hammer up to the 4th fret. Okay, so it was on the G string to play the first 2 notes. Second finger goes on, and just take that off just as you play the C string, so it's ready to play the hammer on at the 4th fret. Okay, and then for the 3 and the next 2 8th notes, we're going to play the E string at the 2nd, and we're going to pick that. We're going to hold it with the 1st finger. We're going to pick it, and then hammer up to the 3rd fret with the 2nd finger. So that little sequence, we'd have 1 and 2 and 3 and. And that's the kind of speed you want to get to, and that kind of fluidity of sound. So these hammer-ons all kind of just flow nicely, sort of equal time gaps between each one, so they're not kind of sounding sort of disjointed and sort of jagged. We want them nice and smooth, nice and clean sounding, all flowing on nicely from each other. Okay, so it takes a bit of practice to get that, but go slow with it. Maybe just do each kind of pair of notes at a time, and then think about the next one, and then think about the next one. So for bar 26, we're now playing the rhythm 1 and 2, 3. Okay, so bar 25 was 1 and 2 and 3 and 26, 1 and 2, 3. So the 2 bars together, 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2, 3. So what we'd have is, and that's how we get those notes. So the start of bar 26 is the open A string picked, and then we hammer on to the 2nd fret with our 1st finger, and then for beat 2 we just come back to the open A, and then for beat 3 we'll play the E string at the 3rd fret. Okay. 1 and 2, 3. Brill. So if we put them together, that little kind of hammer-on sequence there, we'd have. Sounds really cool, doesn't it? It's really fun to play as well once you've got this, but it is a bit tricky, really tricky. So stick with it and take it quite slow, that section. Okay, so in terms of bar 25 and 26 that we've just played there, we just repeat them again. So bars 27 and 28, it's just that same sequence again. And that takes us to the end there of that D section. So a really tricky section, lots going on, lots to practice, lots to learn, lots of new things possibly that you haven't come across before. So one to sort of spend a little bit of time on and get it down before finishing off this piece. So just to show you all together, this D section, this is how it should sound. So now that crazy D section's out of the way, we can just relax now into this final section, the outro, because this is all familiar. All these bars now for the outro are all ones we've played before, just in a slightly different order. So nice and easy to finish off. So bars 29 through to 32, these first 4 bars of this outro section are just the same as bars 5 to 8 from the beginning of the B melody section. So all we're doing is that E minor chord, just those 2 fingers, and with our descending bass note, down to that point there. So all we're going to have is okay, so that's the first 4 bars, dead easy because we've been there before and done them. And then the next bar, bar 33, we just go back to that first bar we just played and we play just those notes there. But now what we're going to do is going to slide this finger, so into bar 34, we're going to slide this finger up to the 7th fret and keep it on and do an actual slide, because it sounds quite nice when you do this as part of the full piece. Slide it up there to the 7th and then pick it on beat 1. And we're just doing the same rhythm, 1, 2 and 3 all the way through this. So back to that first rhythm that we were playing through most of the piece. So bar 33, slide up to bar 34, pick that note, then hold the 6th fret with the 2nd finger, but keep this handy because we're going to hammer it back on. So pick that on beat 2, hammer back up for the and after beat 2, and then holding that there, keep it held while we play the open E string, so it all kind of rings over each other. 1, 2 and 3. Okay, so that's bar 34. So 33 and 34 together. So we're just repeating that kind of melody, but sliding up and doing it kind of just single pick notes without that bass note. It sounds quite good, sounds kind of quite haunting, I quite like it. Okay, and then we're just going to run through that same melody, but up at the octave higher where we started the whole piece back at the beginning in bar 1. So we go back to the 10th fret and do our 10, 9, 10, E string at the 12th, but with our little hammer on. Okay, so that's bar number 35. Okay, and then bar 36, we do that again, but what we're going to do this time is not to do the hammer on. We're just going to pick those notes without hammering on and just slow it down a little bit to the end of that bar, and it just gives it a really nice sort of finish. So we really make a point of picking that 9 back to 10 rather than hammering it. So the 2 bars together, those kind of like higher harmonic bits, 35 and 36, we would have so the whole outro section there together would sound like this. So let's maybe try and have a go with that together, because we've seen these bars all before, so we should be able to manage all that together if we play it nice and slow. So on my count, 1, 2, 3. So there it is, that's the whole thing. I hope you have fun with this one. Take it easy and Merry Christmas.
Alright guys, so this lesson was a lot of fun. This arrangement is a blast to play. And I've got to say again, it really is perfect for those of you transitioning into that intermediate level. Just a great fingerstyle piece for that level. So I do want to give you a friendly reminder. If you want to get the tabs to print off and keep for your records, you can do so by clicking this link or going to the site rockclass101.com and doing a search for Carol of the Bells. Now don't forget too, on that page is the really cool interactive on-screen tab viewer, so that really cool feature where you can hit play, watch the tab scroll across in real time, highlight bars, loop sections, slow it down, all that fun jazz. So guys, again, I hope you enjoyed this lesson and we'll see you in the next one. Take care.